And ever since I was a child, I have been very, very shy. So me speaking here today was not something that I was doing when.
Hawa Yokie, a name that rings a bell when the words innovation, STEM, robotics, forward thinking are mentioned in Sierra Leone and across Africa as a whole.
I'm tired, but again, I'm excited and as well as hopeful.
What makes it tiring?
Hawa Yokie is a change maker in the field of innovation education, known for her exceptional efforts in nurturing creativity, innovation, and forward thinking among young boys and girls. Her dedication to transforming education has made her a household name, inspiring countless young minds to become innovative thinkers.
From Sierra Leone to the USA,
I can imagine how tiring that is, having 6 kids,
Yes.
having to manage them. You were expecting to leave and then now they cancel the flight.
They had to literally fight at the airport. So I used to sneak to the computer lab. I love to ask questions. Well, I remember one time I asked her, where do salt come from?
She has collaborated with both local and international organizations, such as Plan International and Vex Robotics, among many others. At just 23 years old, she is already a prominent voice shaping the future of Africa.
Technology really is important now.
How are you feeling, really?
I'm tired, that I can say. But again, I'm excited and as well as hopeful. That's how I feel currently.
Okay.
But then again, sitting here right now, I'm tired. I'm tired.
You can look to the mic. Something to them, okay? You're tired. Okay, so I can expect that for you to be tired, but what makes it tiring?
Oh yeah, I think the journey from Sierra Leone to the USA, traveling with 6 kids and then 3 coaches, it can be very exhausting.
Yeah.
Considering the fact that this was their first time traveling outside of Sierra Leone. So, me being me, want everything to be perfect. Put them in line. So it was kind of exhausting. But then we got there. Of course, we went for a competition. We had a purpose of why we went there. We didn't go there for vacation. So I had to be on the kids again. Those that have kids could really imagine, like, when you have 1 or 2 kids. So talk less of having 6 kids that you have to take care of, that you have to feed, that you have to ensure that they are protected as well. So all that experience makes it tiring.
I can imagine.
And then we got on our way back to Sierra Leone. We had to, we got to Senegal. They cancelled our flight. So we had to stay there for we spent the night there. But that was not really what was tiring. It was the fact that when we got there, because we landed in Senegal at around 2 p.m. and then they told us that our flight was at 4 p.m. And then when it got to 4 p.m., they told us that, your next flight is at 6.
Wow.
So, people had to literally fight at the airport so that the airlines or the people that were working there could tell us exactly what was happening. And it was around 10 p.m. that they got to us and told us, your flight was cancelled.
So I can imagine how tiring that is, having 6 kids,
Yes.
having to manage them, take care of them, and you were expecting to leave and then now they cancel the flight. What happened when they cancelled? Where did you get somewhere to sleep or something?
Yes, we got to a hotel, but I think before that, everybody was just tired. The whole team was tired because we had to fly from Dallas to Washington D.C. So we left Dallas 2 a.m. in the morning to catch a 4 a.m. flight, and then from there we got to D.C. We had to spend about 3 hours in D.C. before we got on another flight to JFK, and then we spent 6 hours at JFK. So I think between that period, everybody was just tired and exhausted. So when we got to Senegal, we were literally just sleeping. Everybody was sleeping. And then when they told us we were going to the hotel, the team was half asleep. So I was the one that was awake to just know what is going on, what is happening. And then when we got to the hotel, I think everybody was just tired, so everybody just left.
Now, how did this competition, VEX competition, is a robotics competition, is amazing. I think Sierra Leone was really proud to get people to represent us on that particular competition. That was one of those things that actually drew my attention to you. And I thought it is important that you share your story on this podcast. So, how did it come about? How did it start?
I think when we look at the story for VEX, you have to look at the story for Kamara Yokie Innovation Center.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where everything started. And then when you look at Kamara Yokie Innovation Center, you have to look at Hawa Yokie. Because again, that's where everything started.
How did an economist become an innovation founder and CEO? That's amazing. I want to hear that story. So let's start from there.
Okay. So I think ever since I was a kid, I've always been someone that was always very curious. So I love to ask questions. So I'll always go, to my grandmother because, I grew up with my grandmother. So I'll always ask her, how does this work? Or what, even when they are cooking, what are you cooking? How do they make Maggi? So all these questions. Well, I remember one time I asked her, where do salt come from? Because I had never been to the to the capital, and I never knew that we have like salt water. Most times, like that's where Sierra Leone gets the local salt from, and so my grandmother had to explain to me. But again, I grew up in this patriarchal home where it's my grandmother basically. So she was the one that would decide what you would do in college or in GSS or SS. And she was a head teacher, by the way. So, growing up with that strict parent.
Mm-hmm.
And then so one time since GSS, I've been telling her that, I want to go to the sciences. But then, she had the idea of law. And, you should do law.
You must become a lawyer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, of course, being a respectful grandchild, I went to the art stream. But then, when I got to Holy Roses Secondary School in Kenema, and I started going to school, my school was really one of I would say, privileged that had a lab that really had laptops and other equipment. So I used to sneak to the computer lab, wherein I go there, I just watch YouTube.
Okay.
I used to just be on YouTube, watch Chris Brown's video and Rihanna. But then again, like I said, I'm someone that has been very, very curious, and my curiosity is something that really drives me. And so during Ebola, I started the Community Development Service Club at my school, so the CDS. One of the goals for the CDS basically was to go to communities and talk about teenage pregnancy, dropouts, and all these things. And during Ebola, Kenema was actually named the red zone.
Yeah.
Yes, and that was like the time we had a lot of girls dropping out of school, teenage girls, and all this stuff. And so I left Kenema. My grandmother had to make me leave Kenema, and then I came to Freetown. In Freetown, I had the opportunity to travel, for the youth exchange and study program. I applied, and unfortunately I got that. And so I went to the USA. That was really where this curiosity that I had, I really put it into practice. So ever since I was a child, I have been very, very shy. Mm-hmm. So me speaking here today was not something that I was doing when I was, when I was coming up. But then when I went to the USA, I joined the debate team. I think that was where my speech improved. And then I started talking to people. And so I got back with the idea of the CDS that I started in Sierra Leone. Mm-hmm. And so I got to this community that I was working, and almost 80% of the teenage girls there were either pregnant, some are not even going to school.
So basically, your schoolmates,
yes,
some of them that you were going to school with, you came back and like 80% we are pregnant, you dropped out of school, and then you were now thinking in your mind.
Yes.
So how did it go?
So when I asked them what's the reason for this, what they told me was, because we didn't have light, like electricity to study at night. And so this was a story that, I'm a young girl, and then I seen my companion or my classmate in this situation. It was something that I didn't really like. So I came back to Freetown, And I spoke to a few of my mentors at that time by the name of Mustafa Lole, and I told them that, hey, we have to do something for these people. But in my time in my school lab, I discovered renewable energy. It was something that I was really passionate about at that time. And so together with them, we built a technology wherein you combine solar energy and wind energy, and then we were able to power 50 houses in that community.
Wow. Which community is that?
That's the Serabu community.
Okay.
That was in 2017.